The following presentation was recorded live at the Richmond Marriott in Richmond, Virginia for the 29th Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers Convention. This is tape number 16, Advanced and Challenge.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Frank Lescrinier. I'm from Southern California, and I'm going to be the moderator for the session on Advanced and Challenge Choreography. The panelists are Ed Foote from Wexford, Pennsylvania, and to my far left, John Sybalsky from Sunnyvale, California. The original subject matter that I thought this was going to be on was, since the theme for this year is teaching is fundamental, was how do we apply fun in either your teaching or your calling at the Advanced and Challenge? Well, that's not what it says in here, so if we drift apart a little bit and we go into that part, that's why we're headed that way. I went and looked up the word fundamental. You know, it's like everybody looks at, you know, what does this mean? And fundamental is basically, you know, what is essential in your teaching. But I looked at the word fundamental and I looked at it and broke it into two pieces. Because so many times when we do the Advanced and Challenge, we get all wrapped up in the mental part of it, and we forget the fun part of it. The mental fun. It's about the reaction I expected, yeah. Yeah. The mental, yeah. So anyway, we're just going to go ahead and start with Ed, and we only have one mic. This session is being taped, so any questions that you have, we do want them on. We want you to come up, or we'll get the mic to you, so we do get your questions as well as the answers. Okay, so here's Ed Foote.
Thank you. I'm going to start off and go with what it says here in the listing, different approaches for teaching. And I'm real big on teaching advanced and getting people, if they're going to do advanced, to learn it correctly. And I'm real big on people knowing the basics, knowing mainstream and plus. In an ideal world, anybody entering advanced class would be thoroughly acquainted with the mainstream and plus calls, know them DBD, so there's no problem. We can start right off with advanced. This is the way it is in much of Europe, Germany, Sweden, England. So over there, learning advanced is pretty easy because they have this rock-solid foundation. In the U.S., that is not so. And because in this country we do not screen people coming into advanced, I personally believe that people coming into advanced should be screened by the caller, and only appropriate people should be allowed in, those who are ready for it. But that is not the real world in this country. Everybody's allowed in, no matter what their ability level. Well, then accepting what is rather than what we might like to have, then how do we handle people coming into advanced class so that when they graduate from advanced, they at least have some idea of what they're doing? Now, some callers take the position that, well, these people coming into my advanced class, they don't know much in terms of mainstream and plus, so I'm going to start out, and for the first 6 weeks, we're going to do nothing but mainstream and plus, we're going to do DBD, and I'm going to get them solid here first before we go on to the advanced calls. Now, that's a wonderful idea on paper, but unfortunately, it does not sell to the physical people that are in front of us, because these people are here to learn names. They think status is learning new names. So I'm here tonight, I expect to learn a few new names. Fine. If that's what they expect, we have to somewhat cater to that. So we give them a few new names each night of class. But at the same time, we go back and review mainstream and plus calls that they will be expected to be able to do from different positions once they've graduated. Now, the total number of mainstream and plus calls is approximately, 100 or so. But of that number, only maybe 30 or 35 really lend themselves to DBD. I mean, circle right could be considered DBD for circle left, but we don't have to worry about that, and we don't have to worry about do, pass, so, and a lot of these things. And when you really look at the mainstream and plus list, there are only about 35 calls that really then lend themselves to working heavily DBD. And there are about 35 calls on the A1 list. So my rule of thumb has always been, for every new name that we give dancers in advanced class, go back and review a name from the mainstream and plus list. Because this means that by the time the advanced class is over, we will have completed our review of the mainstream and plus calls that we need to review. Now, to me, this seems kind of logical to do. It obviously would give people this, or lend toward this solid foundation we would like them to have. But unfortunately, most callers in the country, or at least let's say the majority, not anybody here in this room, of course, we're talking about the others, who seem to become so enamored with these advanced names that they forget all about the fact that these dancers don't know how to do wheel and deal from facing lines, or they can't do a scoot back from a left-handed wave. So the callers teach their advanced class, and they teach only the advanced names. And at the end of the class, what do we have? We have dancers that I call top-heavy. They know the advanced calls, at least from a couple positions, but there's no foundation underneath because the caller has not built that foundation and the people have not got that foundation in their regular dancing. So then they go out to an advanced dance, and a caller will call a circulate from an inverted line, and these dancers will just die in the middle of the floor because their caller did not give it to them in class. Now, we could say, well, it's the dancer's fault. They are supposed to know that. But it isn't really their fault if they've never been shown and have never been told they're expected to know that. So I put a fair amount of the blame on the caller who does not teach mainstream and plus DBD along with the A1 calls. Now, taking this a step further, we all know that once we learn something, we have to keep practicing it. So once people graduate from advanced class and are now in advanced dances, if all they hear are the advanced calls, they're going to quickly forget the mainstream and plus from all position, even if they've already been exposed to this in advanced class. So I maintain, and my personal rule of thumb is that every A1 dance, 30% of that dance should be mainstream and plus DBD. 30% of an A1 dance. For an A2 dance, 10% of the dance should be mainstream and plus DBD. Now, that's my personal rule of thumb. It's not anything that's been established. But to me, if that formula is followed, then we will have dancers who are solid in the fundamentals and are not top-heavy, and will be able to do a reasonable amount of the calls. Let me jump on to, since this covers both advanced and challenge, let me jump over to C1. There is no teaching order for C1, and the reason for that is when the challenge committee sought to perhaps establish one a number of years ago, everybody had a different teaching order, and there was no real consensus on a teaching order. Also, there was no case where there were a lot of C1 classes in an area and everybody interchanging, so everybody had to be teaching in the same order, which might be more the case in plus, certainly the case with mainstream. And so that's why there is no teaching order for C1. There wasn't felt to be the need for it. So therefore, each caller really determines their own teaching order for C1. Now, there are some printed lists out. Callers that have teach tapes may have a list that they use. One thing, if you're teaching C1, what I would like to see, and in fact, a little bit ago I saw a C1 teaching order, and this C1 teaching order, it was just from one caller, had most of the easy C1 calls at the beginning of the C1 lesson series, and most of the difficult ones at the end. Now we might say, well, that's logical because we'll start off with easy C1 and progress our way upward. But unfortunately, some of the more difficult C1 calls, I mean, it is called challenge, so there are a few more difficult challenge calls. These need to be practiced more than the easy calls. So I like to see some of the harder C1 calls presented early in the teaching program, because then that will enable the people to have practice on these calls throughout the program. So a good balance might be, in a C1 class, one easy call and one more difficult call. Every time you teach two calls, one is easy, one is more difficult. You could even really make a case for 2 out of 3 being more difficult, because we want to give the maximum amount of practice to the more difficult calls. That's basically what I have, at least for a start here, on advanced and challenge. So let me turn it over now to John, and then we'll continue on.
All right. I have one minor addition that I would make to Ed's suggestion about teaching orders, which comes from the experience in the San Francisco Bay Area with PLUS, but seems to carry over to other programs, which is, if you look at the most common calls, in general you want to teach those first, because those are what the dancers will see most. That's what ought to be automatic. That will create the greatest dancer success. Now, you might think that it's the easy calls that are the most common. That turns out not to be true. In fact, if you rank the PLUS calls in order, it matches to some extent the recommended mainstream teaching order, but then suddenly PLUS calls, even some fairly long ones, start getting in there. Relay the Deucey shows up fairly early because it's common. The same thing seems to happen if you do a frequency count of C1. Some of the fairly complicated stuff like Percolate shows up in the first third of the list, and so people get lots of practice at it. I came to this session with a slightly different idea in mind. I was looking at it from the idea of how do we extend calls to create dancer enjoyment. And in looking for a hook to hang my presentation on, I managed to overhear Roy Gatta quoting somebody else who I don't know, so my apology to the originator of this. The idea is that interest plus success equals enjoyment. So interest, in the case of advanced and challenge, comes from some unexpected or unusual but not overstretched use of a call. And success you get, we know, from playing to people's expectations about what hand they're going to use, whether it's an arm turn or a trade. Or if you're going to do something that doesn't match their expectations, you know where to step in to help to create the success. Stepping back again to the interest and unexpected uses of calls, how do you go about figuring out what you can do with a call? How do you know how you can take a call and extend it? You start by looking at the parts. And you start by looking at the parts with the definition so that you know which calls have to be arm turn calls, which calls can have trades in places. And then you start to try to play with where you can do the call from. This actually works easiest if we could have a square of dancers. Can we get 8 folks up to illustrate things? And I'll show you what I mean. You're going. Tim has a date for the evening. Okay. We need one more couple, please. Okay. I have in mind to start with a fairly simple call, quarter through, which we know has two parts, right? It's an arm turn a quarter by the right, and then an arm turn half by the left. So let's have the heads wheel through. Thank you, Tim. Touch a quarter with the outside pair. So the standard place you do it from is somewhere like here. Do a quarter through. So far, so good. Good. Have the men run right. Let's have the ladies hinge. Do a diamond circulate. Have the men trade the wave. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. At which point we have a left-hand wave. And everybody do a diamond circulate. Oh, well, that would be a reverse trade the wave where you trade it and then take the peak. Okay, so we know that the two parts of quarter through are right arm turn a quarter, left arm turn half. So you go looking for places where there are people who've got right hands and can do the right arm turn a quarter, setting them up with some people who will then have left hands with them. For example, here. Okay, quarter through. Good. Quarter through. Now, we almost caught one person. And that actually illustrates I've defeated your expectation that everybody's going to move. And so I needed to actually say something that would help. If I had said men quarter through, you'd have known to stay out of it. Okay? Do another quarter through. Okay? And so for greater success, you'd say ladies or centers quarter through. Go ahead, do that. Whichever they are. Good. Cut the diamond. Let's see what we've got here. Boys run right. Bend the line left, square through 4, I believe. If I did this right, do an Allemande left and promenade home. Now, we know who doesn't dance advanced regularly, don't we? It is. Okay, so there we've taken a fairly simple call. You split the parts and find what you can do. Let's have the sides wheel through. Slide through with the outside pair, pass the ocean, and have the head lady run right. Okay, can you do a quarter through from here? I bet. Well, careful, because what's the first part of quarter through? No. It's right arm turn a quarter. And whoops, you can't do the rest of the call. So that would not be a place I'd try it from. So here's an example of whether it matters whether it's an arm turn or a hinge. Okay, quarter through is definitely arm turn. So it's tempting to do it from here, but you will get not enjoyment out of this, but some disgruntlement if you're not careful with it. Let's see here. Center for People Pass the Ocean. How many of you know how to dance challenge? Just out of curiosity. Okay, you're going to learn a call in a minute. Flip the diamond. Quarter through, yeah. Have the boys run right and bend the line. So there is this call called tally-ho. I researched this from my wife, Jill. It's not normal to teach it from here, and in fact it's not normal to call it from here, but this is actually a good place to call it. Normally the call tally-ho is done from parallel right-hand waves, guys on the ends or whatever, for greatest success. Turns out this is probably the second most successful place to call it from for people who learned it from waves. And arguably this is the best place to teach it from. Okay, let's do the call bit by bit. You start by doing half an all 8 circulate, which is going to end there. The end people, that's the very end guy and the person next to him, trade while the centers hinge and do half of a box circulate. That's going to cause two people to meet, the guys in this case. They go 3/4 while the gals move up like you're finishing Motivate or something like that there. Easy, eh what? Swing through. Okay, you can also do it, the normal place to do it from is here. Okay, again, slowly, tally-ho, you do half an all 8 circulate, the outsides trade, the centers hinge, half a box circulate, the guys will meet, go 3/4, and the gal moves up. And you have the dubious honor of illustrating Joel's strongest point to me, which is, who can figure out who the centers are in that? Okay? Now, waves is the normal place. Every dancer who's been taught can do it from there. But if you're looking to set up an unusual dance, let's everybody do a single hinge and have the boys run right, please. You can set this up, call tally-ho, which is half circulate, centers hinge, half a box circulate, guys meet, go 3/4, gal moves up. It's exactly the normal place. It's exactly the normal parts of the call. And you get pretty much perfect success. Let's have the men run right and do a Ferris wheel, and the centers score through 3. Cheesy, but it works. Allemande left, or shortcut it and promenade home, please. That works for me. Okay. Continuing with tally-ho now for a little while, because there are more things I can do with it than quarter through. There are other things you can do now that you've got the definition. Let's have the sides pair off and do a left touch a quarter. Okay, now you can do it from here. Parenthetically, the guys will be the ones doing the trade, and the ladies will be the ones doing the hinge. The key here is it's left-handed, and if I just blindly on a C1 floor set up left-hand waves and call tally-ho, I guarantee you that the people who are now facing out, who expect to meet with right hands, will meet with right hands, even though they shouldn't. Okay, you should meet with lefts. And so I will say something like tally-ho, guys meet with left hands. So you do a half and all 8 circulate, guys trade by the left, ladies hinge by the left, do half a box circulate, center gal meets, a guy goes 3, other guy moves up, and you wind up there. So there I set up a situation where what you expected wasn't going to happen, which is a recipe for failure unless you intervene somehow. Small intervention, dancer success. Let's have the centers run left. I'm getting weirder by the minute here. Now I'm going to defeat a whole bunch of expectations. People expect it's going to be an arm turn on the outside, but I said trade. People expect it's going to be an arm turn hinge in the center, but I said hinge. People expect it's going to be an arm turn cast off 3/4, but it may or may not be. Okay, this is one you would work up to slowly, but you sort of see the progression for doing it now. Let's do this one very slowly and carefully. Okay, tally-ho, you do half and all 8 circulate. Ladies are doing the trade. The guys are doing a partner hinge. Guys are doing half a box circulate. And then it's a push cast off 3/4, and the other guy moves up pretty much. No, you were headed the right way. You're facing out. And, yeah, not bad for never having seen the call before. But that's something that without lots of care and handling will drop a floor. Let's have the center 4 pass the ocean. Diamond circulate and have the centers trade the wave. You do a left quarter through. Let's have the centers do a left quarter through. Dropping back to quarter through for a minute here, there are other ways you can extend calls. We started by taking the definition and putting it everywhere we could. Once you've broken the call into parts, you can start to play with the parts. I can say, for example, do a left quarter through 1 1/2. So that will be quarter, half, and then another first part of the quarter through, and you wind up there. Cut the diamond. Let's have the center nets. Everybody trade the wave and have the centers run right. Or you can do only some part of a call. Do 2/3 of a mini busy. And 2 guys hinge, ladies step, turn, and you have an hourglass. You have an hourglass. Yeah, the guys have the diamond. Good. Do an hourglass circulate. He woke up finally. You were indeed. Let's have the ladies flip the diamond and the ladies mix. Do a left quarter through. We've been here before, and you get the idea. So it's look for the part. Tempting, isn't it? Because quarter through always ends with a half by the left. So that may be a place you need to intervene and say something like, guys don't trade. Or call slip because they're going to do it anyway. No? It's a good point. Okay, so you've broken the call into parts, looked at what you can do with it. At the places where people will have trouble, you intervene, or you do it as with the facing line tally-ho, so that everybody's expectation about what's going to happen is perfectly met. And then they succeed. Thank you for the idea, Jill. And that's the end of my first perspective.
Okay, go. Go ahead and stay there, though. Stay there. No, squirt out. You know, so there's so many of us that, I mean, I used to take this so seriously, this calling, and I was like really zoned into it, and, you know, the dancers, they should know everything from everywhere, and, you know, if the definition says you can do it from here, I expect it, and all this stuff. And then I had the rude awakening that that's not the real world. So then I started trying to, how can I put some humor into the, you know, what I'm calling? How many of you do not know how to twist the line or twist stand? How many do not? Just, I don't see any hands, so we're okay. Yeah, the centers pop out and trade, and the others wait for the other call? Okay. All 4 couples go right and lift through. Yeah, that's why we keep calling it. Head, star through, and spread. And I would do this at the end of, after I've been working on twist the line and twist stand, okay? Yes, yeah. Pass through. Do a twist stand, shout, you're home. Yeah. And the crowd is going to go, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you do that as the last thing before either you do singing call or you're at the end of the thing. Now, I think I had one other with 2 couples here. Yes. Oh, here we go. Let's have the sides promenade half. Head square through 4. He doing this without music, but didn't bring any. Swing through. Recycle. Pass to the center. Zoom. And the new center is squeeze. Partner trade slide apart. No, trade slide apart. Get out of there. I didn't mean squeeze hurt. No, yeah, there you go. So you got your O, okay? So in your O, pass through. Okay? In your O, trade by. So you've been zoning in on this O, right? In your O, pass in. Okay, now from here, you say grand square. And they're like, huh? No, you didn't say side space, okay? So go ahead and go back to where you were at, to the original spot, and go ahead and do the grand square. Again, this would be after I've worked the O's and done a whole bunch of stuff. And, you know, of course, it's going to be the 32 beats, da-da-da-da-da. And, of course, you're going to end up right at home. And that's how I would end that, okay? I just want to show one other thing that I've done with 6 couples. Now, can I get 2 more head couples? That's why we have a little more room over here. 2 more couples that'll dance the head spots. Okay, we won't get 2 more couples to dance the head spots. Yes. Okay, there's one. And we just need one. And I need one more gal. Oh, and John will just jump in. Now, there's many situations where sometimes you won't have enough for 2 squares, but you know you've got 1.5, and just like you hate to see what half sitting out, so you go ahead and do this. So I started playing with, you know, what can I call with 6 couples, and I started playing with the C1 list. So let's have the heads square through 4. Of course, you got 2 sets of heads that are doing this now. And then we've got 3 sets of boxes, so everybody swing through and do an AC-doocy. Boy run around a girl, and you bend your line. And son of a gun, if that 0 didn't work out for 6 couples, as it does with 4, okay, no biggie. Touch a quarter. Now circulate 1.5. And let's have the girls squeeze. Now I'm looking at this going, you know, it's not a galaxy. You know, it's like, and so I'm talking over the microphone to the dancers. I'm saying, well, gee, we don't have a galaxy. Let's do a universe circulate. And you just get, so you go to the, okay. And so I said, let's do another universe circulate. And okay, so we've done that. So let's squeeze the universe. And so now that we don't have a galaxy, we don't have a universe, well, we have to do a Milky Way circulate. So go, do a Milky Way circulate. Yeah, I'm killing you, yeah. Milky Way circulate. Now let's have the head boys for you. Head boys squeeze. And in your column, do 1/2 of a column circulate. Oh. Well, I wanted him involved too, though. I'm sorry. Everybody do a half a column. Everybody half a circulate. We have our column. There you go. Now, each group of 4 now, zing. Leaders, 3/4 zoom, the others. Each group of 4. Okay. Everybody wheel through. Yeah, trade by. Right and left through, veer left. Ferris wheel. Center, sweep a quarter, back away, and you should be home. So that was just something I just came up with the, and the dancers really got a kick out of the universe, and it's like it was nothing. And yet, it made them, kind of relax a little bit because they're tense because a lot of them have never danced the 8, 6 couples, and it just kind of brought some fun to it. So that was just a couple of things that I saw there. Unless you guys have anything else with the dancers. Any it's got to be on the mic. Got to be on.
Yes, I'd like a tutorial on press that's been dropped to C1.
Go for it, John. We just need A square.
Or A squared D or something. Right. Okay, so we've been asked to do a quick tutorial on press, which was recently moved down to the C1 list. Yes. You're not going to get the partial tutorial, however. Okay, let's have the heads wheel through, and everybody pass in just for a second. Okay, the idea of press is that there are dancer positions in the world. So there's the spot you are on, and one dancer position in front of you is the person you're facing. And one dancer position beyond that person is another spot that somebody could occupy, and so forth on into infinity. Everybody pass through. Now, if I ask a couple of people, say the boys, to press ahead, you go forward one dancer spot. Blam. Suddenly we have blocks, which are a C1 thing. And that's really what they're intended to set up and get out of. In your block, so it's the guys with that guy who's, if you look sideways and find a guy, and ladies find a lady. In your block, do a partner trade. So guys, you have to trade sideways with the other guy. Good. And now you're kind of out behind the girls. If the guys would press ahead, you go, and you're back together again. You can also add a direction after press to get things. For example, the lady who is on the end of the line, if I asked you to press left, you would go forward and to the left one spot, which would put you up next to that guy. Let's have that. Let's see. Let's have the, and he's a side. Let's have the side man press ahead and the side lady phantom run to the right into that spot he used to be in, and at least we're back out of that mess again. The center 4 people pass the ocean. Let's see. We have cut the diamond and explode the wave. So the directions that you can use for press are ahead, which is straightforward. You could use left and right, or you can use in and out. So if I have the ladies press in, it's forward and inward one spot, which will put no turning involved, and inward one, which will put you right in front of the guy. Okay. Let's have the ladies do a partner trade with each other. Let's have the ladies press out, which is forward and outward one spot. Exactly. Let's have the men press ahead and trade with each other, and we're back in this funny O thing again. Now, the thing you've got to be careful of is that there is no dancer space between those ladies, right? The ladies are like they are the ends of facing lines at this point. Sideways there is, but front to back, if I said pass through, you could pass through. So if I said press ahead, you'd take each other's spots, right? Everybody press ahead. Careful, gals. Exactly. Okay, let's have the men press ahead and the men press out, which in press involves no turning. Okay, with the phantom next to you, do a phantom partner trade inward. Good. All the ladies press ahead. All the men press out. Single hinge. Good. You got the idea. That's it.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I guess let's thank the dancers for hanging in there, for helping us out with that. Yes, we do. Ed wants to follow up, and then we'll get John in.
Okay. Several things. First of all, following up on what John said about the teaching the more commonly used calls earlier, which I totally agree with. And one perfect example is the tally-ho. The commonly used calls tend to have a lot of places you can use them from, as we saw with the tally-ho. And we don't want to show all the different places the first night. It can be considered overload. So the nice thing about taking a call like tally-ho or a scootin' plenty that has a lot of variations is that then we can continue in succeeding weeks of the lessons to show the different formations and places where we can use the call. But if we wait to show tally-ho or scootin' plenty toward the end of the lessons, now we're cramped for time and we don't have enough time to do all that. For example, the tally-ho, week number 1, you might show from parallel waves and with the girls in the middle and then parallel waves with the boys in the middle. And then do that for 3 weeks or 2 weeks. Then let's say week number 3, you come to the facing lines. Week number 5, you go to lines facing out, which is a variation of facing lines, but it feels different. Then week number 7, you come up to the left-handed two-face line that John had, and then maybe week number 9 or 10, you come up to right-handed two-face lines, and we can see how we can build on this constantly. So that's another advantage of starting and having early in your program the more complicated calls, and plan your teach ahead of time in terms of these calls. Write down what night I'm going to do what. And pretty much like I said, the first night I'm going to do this, and then after I feel they're successful 2 or 3 nights down the road, here's the second thing I'm going to do, and then third thing. So you have a game plan going in. It isn't just all kind of muddling around in your mind, and I think, well, tonight I'm going to do this, and have a little game plan on these more complicated calls, like tally-ho or scootin' plenty. Something else I want to mention on teaching, and applies to both advanced and C1. We all know that it's helpful to the dancers to, once we have given the call name, we then directionalize how to do the call. And this is very helpful for the dancers. Unfortunately, if you keep doing this directionalizing forever, you then develop weak dancers because they don't have to think for themselves, because you are thinking for them, because you are always telling them how to do the call. So at some point on every call, we have to stop and say nothing, and we just say tally-ho. And after about 5 weeks from position number 1, theoretically they should be able to do it. If they're still having trouble, we come back, directionalize it a couple more times, then come back and do it again and say nothing. Very important point, because I've seen callers and even some well-known callers whose dancers can do everything under the sun to them, and you go in and call for them, they can't do anything. Why? Because their home caller directionalizes everything, and you go in and just give the call name. Well, I don't know how to do that. You haven't told me how to do it. I've been dancing it for 2 years, but you got to tell me how to do it. It's a trap we can fall into because it's very easy to just continually directionalize, especially if we're calling a lot of mainstream and plus dances, where we tend to do that all the time. And, of course, advance and challenge isn't plus. And so at some point, the dancers have to take the responsibility to know the calls on their own. Let me, another topic that, or not a topic, I guess, but a call that's most commonly used, and there's 2 aspects to this. I'm looking at the call wheel through. You hear on tapes, you see in note services, the whole world seems to call heads wheel through and veer left, because it gets us to a 2-face line. It's real easy. We do this at advanced dance because wheel through, it's another name. So we call the wheel through and then veer left. But how many people have stopped to think, is that combination smooth? Because the wheel through has people making a 90-degree turn to the right, especially the girl, and then we have to suddenly slide over to the left. A better, more smoother combination is heads lead right and veer left, because then it's a blending action. And we call this, at Mainstream Plus, heads lead right and veer left. But all of a sudden we get to advanced, and callers say, oh, nope, I got to use an advanced word here. So instead of saying lead right, I'm now going to say wheel through. And then I'm going to say the veer left, and that automatically throws a little bit of awkwardness into the dance. So consider, if you're using that combination, if you really want to use it as much as you're using. Also, on wheel through, in teaching wheel through, most callers only call it and teach it from a squared set. Have we ever stopped to recognize that wheel through from a squared set is the exception to the rule? Because the true definition of wheel through says the right side person will quarter right in place. That applies to lines of 4, that applies to 8 chain through. It applies to every position except a squared set. A squared set wheel through is the exception to the rule, because the right side person must step forward first and then quarter right. Therefore, if we're going to teach wheel through, the logical way to teach it would be first from an 8 chain through, and then from lines of 4 facing, and maybe 12 weeks down the road, we show the exception to the rule, which is the squared set. But how many callers do this? Nope. Well, Jill raises her hand. That's very good. So consider that in the future. In teaching an advanced class, consider using wheel through from lines and 8 chain through from a starting double pass through position where the centers do it. Do that first. Come back to your squared set wheel through later on, because that is the exception to the rule. And then explain to the dancers this is the exception to the rule. One final thought on, and John was talking about quarter through, so this has got me thinking about this. We know that from a thar, we can call quarter through, right? Cast a quarter gives us an Alamo ring and half by the left. Likewise, from an Alamo ring, we can call quarter through, half by the right, center star over. If I'm out calling anywhere, and I have people in an Alamo, and I call quarter through, they all do it, no problem. Cast a quarter by the right, center 4 star over. If I want them to do it again, so now it's cast right a quarter, back to an Alamo, and half by the left. They're all dead in the water. So we need to emphasize to the dancers that a quarter from an Alamo ring gives you a thar, and a quarter from a thar gives you an Alamo ring. And we need to keep working this until the dancers really understand this idea. It's really illogical that they can do the quarter through from an Alamo, but then they can't do it from the thar, unless we stop and tell them and baby them all the way through it. So consider, if you haven't worked quarter through from a thar very often with your dancers, consider working that a little bit, really as an educational tool to get them to realize that a quarter from a thar gives them an Alamo ring. Okay, those are all the other things John?
We can go in lots of different directions from here. I think it would be interesting if we collectively brainstormed about how to extend a call and see what we got out of it. And I'm going to propose horseshoe turn. Everybody know what this is? Okay, everybody knows that it's clover and partner tag. So, where can you call it from? And somebody, beg pardon? Completed double pass-through would be a good one. Trade by would be another good one. Those are the two common ones. Okay, so a 3/4 box or a left 3/4 box. Left would be less comfortable, but okay. Okay. He suggested a 3/4 line. I'll suggest 3/4 tag as well. Okay, because all the centers have to be able to do is partner tag. What happens if you've got a 3/4 box, a couple's facing out, and a box in the middle, and you counter-rotate that box a quarter?
It's been proposed that we set up a square and play with this.
Do I have volunteers? Notice how when you stand up, I stand up. I'm not quite sure why this is. Oh, so I can see what's going on. Okay. So, let's have the head slide through. Do a double pass through. So here is certainly one place. Horseshoe turn. Okay, we pass through. We now have a trade by formation. Horseshoe turn. The outside's clover. They partner tag. Pass through. So one possibility is we can futz with the centers. Let's have the centers pass in. Okay, remember that it's next to you. Horseshoe turn, so they clover, you tag. Okay, of course you've got to get out of this setup. Yeah, step and step would work at challenge. How about half a split circulate? Good. She did. She's there. Good. Let's have the centers pass through, which gets me out of that mess. Do a wheel and deal. Centers swing through. Extend twice. Okay. Horseshoe turn. So the center's a partner tag for the center, so you've got to tag with him. Right? And so the guys pass through. The center people split the outside couple, first left, next right, round one, make a line. Whew. Pass through. Do a wheel and deal. Let's see here. Pass through. Everybody pass through, and the centers veer left. So here's a 3/4 line, such as Frank proposed. Horseshoe turn. The outside's going to cleverly, and they do a partner tag. So the center men pass through. Let's have the center men pass through, which leaves you behind her. Good. Split the outside couple, first left, next right, round one, make a line. All right. I can't offhand think of very many others. Go for it. Let's have the ends pass through. Now, can the ends cloverleaf from here? So you would expect a single turn in place 3/4? Yeah, I think you're maybe hitting the point where some people are boggling. But so let's try it. Horseshoe turn, and with some amount of grumbling, he goes around and does that, and you wind up there. Yeah, he's got this funny, ooh, maybe there should be somebody behind me, so I should do something reaction. So this is what we're here for, to try. Let's see here. Pass through, and let's have the centers as couples touch a quarter. This is the only other place I can think of. Okay, got it. Horseshoe turn, so they're definitely cloverleafing, and they're definitely doing that. Good, let's have the center guy pass through, the center lady do a U-turn back, and the centers touch a quarter. And I'm not going to try to resolve it. So what we did was, you want the mic?
If you haven't used any of these other variations of horseshoe turn, and it's a lot to hit you at one time, consider at your next dance working the 3/4 tag formation, because it's very easy to get into. You have parallel waves that extend, and then do your horseshoe turn. It's wonderfully creative. You can theme that the whole night, and that's one position. Just use that for the first time, then you can move on to the others. But it's very easy to sight into that.
But don't do this before you practice. And, do your homework before. Just don't, I think I'm just going to do it from a 3/4 tag tonight. Make sure you do your homework and then work on it.
And do a double, extend twice. And do the horseshoe turn. And, of course, what you want here is, by doing the homework, he means, what do you do now? Okay? So you want to have written down maybe 4 different things you can do now. Okay, let's have the center 4 right roll to a wave. Okay, center 4 hinge, center 4 partner tag. Okay, so now we're back to where we were. Center boy turn around, center 4 Dixie style to an ocean wave, center 4 rear back, and start a left split square through 3. So that just comes from working with checkers. But those are a couple examples. You not only want the idea, but then you got to have neat ways to get out of it. You want to be able to get out of what you get yourself into.
Well, let's see. That was a good fractionalization one. Bend the line, touch a quarter. Here's one where thinking about fractions doesn't work, but thinking about where you have to do it from may. I'm going to play with trail off. Okay, everybody trail off, please. Good. As couples, trail off. Yep, they do that. Good. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Good. As couples, crossfire, which you may notice put you back somewhere. Everybody crossfire. If you're not dizzy yet, split counter, rotate a quarter. You do now. Trail off. To the right. To the right. Oh, man. Okay, now it's a little tight for doing as couples lock it, which will make things a little more comfortable. I mean, I really should have done it the other way. So, what went funny there? You sort of didn't know which way to go. Okay, so we had waves there. Poor Tim was looking for columns and couldn't find them. And with trail off, you're looking to go toward somebody, and he had two somebodies he could go toward. So I had to intervene and say to the right to get him to go in the right direction. Because you violated this expectation that there's a clear center and that it's columns. Yuck. You can play the same game with peel off, of course. I would call trail off more than I'd call peel off, because you bend the line and touch a quarter, please. Yeah. Okay. If I called peel, if I don't do it, if I were to call, let me put it in the subjunctive, peel off from here, the guys heading to the left would kill each other. Okay. If I call trail off, there's at least a little room there, and the ladies can make the adjust to not creaming each other much more easily than the guys would have been able to going to the left. So everybody trail off, it's to the right. Notice the ladies don't go past each other. The whole square has to breathe out along the side. You have to go 180 degrees there. And Jay has to turn around so that he's facing me. I know your name's on tape forever and you've had it, right? You can't call in New England anymore. So you've got, when you're doing things like that, to watch out for spacing effects like that. I mean, any more than you can call peel the top comfortably from waves, because you get that same crash. You've got to give people room to get into. Dancers will make the adjust to breathe the square if you give them half a chance. You look like you have a question, Lynn. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Consider that trail off from waves is completely legal. I've never seen it dance smooth. Even if you got plenty of room and all, unless you're theming it so the dancers have done it 5 times and they know number 6 is coming right now. It just doesn't dance smooth, and I just literally never call it, even though it's legal, because it just doesn't dance well.
So I'm more likely to everybody do a half tag on your own side, split, counter, rotate a quarter, and trade the wave, guys, toward the far end. Crash, thud, bang, tweet. Okay, I'm more likely now, switching up into C1, to call triple box trail off. Now, what you need to know about if you would get things so the guys are lined up with each other. Okay, and the waves are lined up. The triple box concept adds 2 dancers out beyond the end of the wave, one next to each guy. And then you split things into thirds. So the ladies have a real box in the middle, in this case, and the guys are each holding a phantom dancer by the right hand, and that makes a group of 4 for you to work in. Now, if from here I say triple box, trail off, the guys are going to the right, the ladies are going to the right, and you've got to do the 180-degree turn, and you've got to be a little careful because the phantoms were coming in to take place between the guys and the gals. but you don't need to give them as much room as you give real people. This one actually does dance smoothly, assuming you can get people to go in the correct direction and not boggle. And there are 2 phantoms there. So now we have end-to-end triple lines, which may or may not officially be on the C1 list, but which for sure you can get people to do. You say triple line, so you've got the 2 phantoms there, right? In your triple line, do a half tag. So you're going to come down and grab right hands with a phantom. In your triple box, do a walk and dodge, so you're a dodger. Exactly. You can stop hyperventilating now. But that's the way you can get more space, assuming you're at the right program.
Thank you to the square. Nice hymn for a square there. I wanted to follow up on this wonderful quote that John gave. Interest plus success equals enjoyment. Everybody has the interest. They wouldn't be in an advanced class or a C1 class or at a dance if they didn't have the interest. Interest plus success. Success comes from having a solid foundation. So if the people don't have a solid foundation, they will not have success. And if they don't have success, they won't have enjoyment. But not only will they not have enjoyment, all the people that they break down will not have the enjoyment either. So the key to the word success is a successful foundation, a successful, solid foundation. I am just amazed. I constantly asking the question to the ethers, if you can't dance C1, if you can't dance A2, what are you doing here at C1? Yeah, yes. If you can't dance C1, what are you doing here at C2? And this misconception that, well, if I dance C1, it's going to make me a better A2 dancer. No, because at C1 you're going to hear the C1 calls, and you're probably not going to hear very many advanced calls. It's going to make you a worse advanced dancer. So I've never understood that rationale at all. But I love the interest plus success equals enjoyment, but the success means having a solid foundation.
And the unnamed person gets credit for that, because we don't know who that was. I did jot a couple of ideas that I got from Vic Cedar, and I asked if I could use his thoughts on the teaching. And a lot of this is applicable to mainstream and plus as well as the advanced, but I think it's it's almost a little more critical when you start getting into these programs. When you're teaching the dancers, try to make sure their formations are compact and they're not like way out, because the further apart they are, more ground they have to cover to execute the calls. God, I'm finding that with the beginners class, and they're huge squares when they're done. And then you call the next call, they have to like travel further. So if they keep it tighter, you're gonna and touch hands at the end of the formation, at the end of the calls. Then they'll be able to see where I'm at. I mean, I don't think we really have expectations on dancers at mainstream and plus. Heads and sides, leaders, trailers, centers and ends. All these parameters that we put on the advanced and challenge dancers. They're responsible for all this stuff. And if they don't know where they are in the square, how are they going to be able to do the call or that part of the call if you're going to fractionalize it? Another thing would be if you're in the square and the caller says, bows do this, and if the bows will identify, they'll say, then the bell may not know if they're bell or bow. At least they know that okay, that's the bow, and they go. Or in point, out point, and you identify your triangles. One thing I cringe on is when the person that's not the one that's identified is putting their hands pointing to the person that should be in there. Now you've got everybody pointing, and now it's like, if you're not involved in it, just stay low and, don't get involved. I've heard callers say, watch somebody in your other square that's like your counterpart and watch them. And then wherever they are, then, you know where you're supposed to be. Well, I suppose survival, that might be true, but you're really doing a disservice, because now it's like, well, I really don't have to learn all the call, because I know that Joe over there is going to be where he needs to be, so then, I don't have to, I don't really have to pay attention. And so, that's not really, it's not, to me, it's not good advice. And don't shortcut a call. If you know you have to be from point A to point B and just go there, rather than dance the whole call, like an element left. I know I thought it was going to be really cute one time. I was on the end of a right-handed wave facing out, and the caller said motivate. And I figured, well, I'm coming right back here. So I just stood there. Well, what happened was when it got to that middle star, there were only 3 people in it. And it freaked them out because they didn't have their formation. And so we broke down. So it was kind of a, oops, I shouldn't have done that. And, of course, the caller the next time saw me do it. Says, turn the star, of course, and then, I'm out to lunch. So, don't do that. When you've got your students, especially, you want that critical floor time. Encourage the dancers to dance as much as they can. Now, of course, the further you go up in the chain of programs that we have, there's fewer and fewer dances available. So you have to drive further, or callers aren't available, and all that stuff. So it really is crucial. And I've heard callers say, well, they've not really said it. They've kind of alluded to it, but they kind of want them just to themselves. And to me, that's like they're kind of insecure, because if you go over to that guy, you might like him better, and you won't come back to me. And I mean, go to as many dances as you can, because there's no one caller that can come up with all the different permutations. As a caller, I can only think of so much. And then I've got 1/10 of what Ed and John can come up with. 1/20th? 30th. 1/1,000,000th of it. There you go. Oh, the other of it. So, you've got all these different, you can only prepare them so much. So the more they get to dance and the more variety of colors that they get to dance to, encourage them. And above all, learn the definitions. And, it sounds corny, but I've got 2 C1 groups, and as soon as I hit chain reaction, and when you start getting these other, definition doesn't change. Definition hasn't changed at all, but the feel of it has totally changed. And I was working it for like 2 months. Every week I do every week I do 1 tip on chain reaction. And he says, you should do this all the time. I says, I've been doing it for like 2 months now. I says, I could do this for 2 years. And until you learn the definition, if you want to do this by muscle memory, you're never going to learn it, because there's too many different variations. And well, I don't understand. They just don't want to commit to the definition. It's really an easy definition. You think about it, and if you don't learn the definitions, it's not going to fly. Anyway, by doing all this stuff, you're going to create more competent dancers. And I don't know about you, but when I feel more comfortable with what I'm doing, I'm going to enjoy it more. I'm going to have more fun. And that's kind of like the bottom line. You've all heard the stereotype advanced and challenge dancers don't have fun, I think it was at Salt Lake City at the Nationals. They had the callers room right next to the C3, C4 hall. And the plus callers are going by, and they're looking in. They're just see what it's like, because they've never seen, C3. They're looking in. They come over, and I'd be sitting in there, and they go, boy, those people aren't having very much fun. And I said, well, why do you say that? Well, you can just tell. Just look at them. And I said, well, do you have another reason? Well, yeah, they're not smiling. And I thought, well, I said, and so I asked him, do you play checkers? I said, yeah. He said, do you play chess? Yeah. Which do you enjoy more? Oh, I enjoy chess more because it's more challenging. So I kind of left it at that and figured, well, I wasn't gonna get it. He wasn't gonna understand what I was saying. But it says cerebral fun. When you get your the whole square to get back to where you started, that's fun. And twist and shout is fun. Universe circulate is fun. I mean, there's so many different things that we can do. There's the verbal cues that you can do. That if whatever. For example, statics where you say the heads pass through, and you're working on T-bones, and they've passed by too far, and so you make sure that they don't go too far, and you say, are the centers in the middle? The center's in the middle. You know, it's like, and they think about it, go, yeah. So there's a lot of, you know, obviously the verbal cues. Anyway, getting back to, the more confident the dancer, the more fun they're going to have, the more enjoyment they're going to have, and they're going to stay in the activity. When they start getting burnout, you know, that's when we're going to lose them. And the other is, even though whatever you're dancing, make sure you support the other programs, the mainstream and the plus, because just because you've gone on to another program, you know, don't forget where our lifeblood is. One more comment?
Yeah, two things based on what Frank said. If somebody ever says to you, well, advanced or challenged dancers don't have fun, and it's obvious because they aren't smiling, the obvious comeback, the guaranteed comeback to them is say, how many round dancers do you ever see smile? And virtually none are smile. Well, they must not be having fun either, right? End of that discussion.
That's why they don't belong as square dancers.
Yeah. We didn't get that on the. Hope we didn't get that on the tape. And then the other thing that Frank mentioned, steal this piece of choreography if you've never used it. It's great. From Parallel Waves, give this command: the ends facing out slide sideways out of the set. Everybody, the rest now motivate. Go. When they're done, say those ends slide back in. You're back to the normal place on the motivate, and it's felt totally different. John, question? Yeah, yeah. Let's get. Oh.
I'm Lynn Webster from the Twin Cities. I don't really have a question. I have a comment. We had a new advanced class start. Now, I'm not teaching the class, but we had a plus caller, mainstream caller, come and says, I can call this stuff. I better learn how to dance it. And I'm like, you know, just because you got a computer program that can go up to the A level, they think they can call this stuff. You got to dance it. You've got to know what you're doing. A lot of my best stuff I write on my checkers, not on the computer, but on just my checker movers, the magnetic ones. So just because you got the program doesn't mean the stuff's going to flow. The computer will tell you, yeah, you can do it from, I had a guy called Mix from Diamonds. And, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, it works. You got the centers, can cross, run, the end, slide, and trade. But it didn't flow worth a darn. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
My rule of thumb is that every caller should be able to outdance 90% of all the callers that they call for at whatever program they're calling.
That's either going to lead to an awful lot of very good callers, or everybody can dance the same. If I have to be able to outdance 90% of the callers I call for.
The dance? Did I say dance?
You said caller.
Oh, I meant dance.
Oops.
Stop the tape! Stop the tape!
Interest plus success equals enjoyment. You get the interest from pulling things apart, looking at them and playing. You get success from knowing what people are going to expect and knowing when you have to step in and help them get the right thing.
How many people here call C1? Okay. I'd like to get a square of the C1 people just real quick, because I want to show you this giant problem at C1. We need one more person for, yeah. No, no problem. Okay. Heads past the ocean. On the call, scootin' plenty. There are two giant places that it's a problem, and I don't see very many callers explaining these two problem areas to their dancers. And the reason I know they aren't explaining it is because the dancers are always having problems. So that tells me the callers aren't explaining it, at least for most of the dancers. Do your scoot back for the scootin' plenty, and then freeze there. The first key on the plenty is when we do the step and fold in the center, the folder must do an extremely sharp fold. Now what I see at dances is that the folder does a giant fold in their way back. I tell them as fun that once the folder, when they are done with the fold, should be so close to the stepper that they should be able to breathe on the back of their neck. Because we want this whole thing tight in here, right? And what I always see, yes, right, what I always see is that the folder is doing an elongated fold, and that forces the whole resulting box to be too big, and then the box circulates, can unravel. So that's the first key. All right, now the second key is that the outsides will quarter right and counter rotate. Go quarter right, right, your other right, the opposite direction of your watch, okay, and move up and grab. All right, now we know here we're going to do 2 box circulates. The problem is that the lead person in the middle, because they have had so little to do, all they've done is the step part of the step and fold, that lead person will tend to take off too soon. And therefore, the outside people haven't made it yet, and the box unravels. I tell the lead person in the middle, you are not allowed to move until the trailing dancer on the outside has passed the peripheral vision of your right eye. Now, that's kind of a joke, but it gets it across. They think of that. Now, what some callers have told their dancers is to say, nobody moves until everybody gets to the box, and then everybody say, I see the box, or I see the wave, and then go. But the problem with that, and I've seen this with dancers that are doing it, they'll stop and say, I see the box, but the box is too big because the folder has done the elongated fold. And so that's why both of these things must be done. If they're both done, then it'll be no problem. And then from here, we just finish off. Go ahead, do your 2 box circulates, and then lead or roll back. So remember those 2 key things on thank you to the square. On teaching the, do you want to hold them up? No, okay. Those are the 2 key places on Scoot and Plenty, the sharp fold and the lead person in the center, the lead center not moving until the trailing outside dancer has passed by.
We have a few minutes left. Anybody have any comments, questions? You gotta bring them up, you got to come up here for the mic. No, it's got to be on the mic. It won't pick it up on the tape.
I have a question in regards to counter-rotate and extending that by adding a roll onto the end of it. Could you explain the theory, because the trailing position is actually a circulate?
You're going with the cheat of the turn and walk and turn, I assume. Yeah, that's not the definition. So if you were taught that, then I can see where you would see there would be no roll, but it's almost not a circular, but it's a lazy Susan type effect. Yeah, the center, and you're moving a quarter. So yes, you're walking and turning, but you're turning a wall. So it's like a little circular thing. So that's why there is a roll at the end of it. If you go by the turn and walk and turn, then that's going to hurt you. Same thing. Yeah.
The definition of counter-rotate is promenade. And promenade is a circular motion, so we know we can roll after that. So the same for split counter-rotate. It's a promenade in your little group of 4. The crutch definition is walk and turn or turn and walk, and that's fine. It's a crutch definition. And in fact, if callers teach their dancers that way, I say that's okay, as long as you also tell them anytime you hear roll after counter-rotate or split counter-rotate, everybody can roll. Just got to remember that.
You'll run into the same trouble if you teach 2/3 recycle as a flip the line a half. Get you into the same spot, but you can't roll at the end of the flip the line a half, but you can roll at the end of a 2/3 recycle. So just be careful on the teaches. Whatever the cheats are that you're going to teach them, make sure that they have survival skills that they can then adjust accordingly. Mike? No, you're not Mike. No.
My question would be, why would you want to call recycle 2/3 in a row? Why don't you say recycle?
Well, there's the humor part of the job. Yeah, have fun. And the first time, some of them may get it. Some of them say, "Can we just do a recycle?" But I wouldn't. It's just understanding the concept that you can.
The reason you would want to do it is that you want to put your choreography together so it forces the dancers to know the rule of the call. And that's why you would call that there. I'm trying to think of other places where we put our choreography together, forces the dancers to think of the rules. I can't think of one offhand, but there are other places.
Let's say you wanted to go get into T-bones, and you called 2/3 recycle, and let's say the boy was on the end, and the boy roll. Okay, so then you've got your T-bones. I mean, I know I wouldn't call it, but just to understand the cheat versus the ending, what you should really end up at. Any other questions or comments?
I'm not sure this is the right place. Sorry? Oh, my name is Tim Mörner. No, Bula from Sweden. I would like to see the hourglass circulate dropped lower on the list, because of the end part of for instance, coordinate is a sort of hourglass circulate. Also, I have the feeling, I'm not sure, I haven't checked really, but I have the feeling that motivate is well ahead of the hourglass circulate in the teaching order. And in the motivate, there's also hourglass circulate for the outside four.
Do you want the translation to Swedish? You said the motivate is after. Oh, all right. Yes, you're right. You're right. That suggestion would go to the plus committee. I can tell you it'll never happen. The first suggestion, the hourglass go to plus, it'll never happen. They're looking to drop calls, so that'll never happen. Here's motivate, and then. Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, the end part of coordinate being an hourglass circulate. That's true, but nobody thinks about it. It's like the end parts of all sorts of stuff. The end part of the trailing boy from parallel waves on the call all 8 circulate. The trailing boy is doing the very end of a relay the deucey. You know. Nobody thinks about it, you know, but they're moving up. So it's like coordinate is coordinate and hourglass circulate is hourglass circulate. And once you get into the higher levels of challenge, you can say certain people do your part of an hourglass circulate, but I would never do that in advance.
It's the reason for this proposition is for teaching purposes.
Okay. Jerry?
Jerry Carmen, New York. It's been a while since I've done a C1 workshop or even dance C1, but it seems in Scoot and Plenty there was a star. What happened to it?
Now, the star is still there as far as the way we turn it. From what I understand, and I haven't been calling as long as these gentlemen over here. But,
this was changed probably, 10, 15 years ago, where it was said that there is no longer a star in Scoot and Plenty, it's now do 2-box circulates. That's the new definition. Everybody at Challenge in Challenge and CALLERLAB voted on it, and that's the new definition. It's the exact same thing as spin the windmill. Originally, spin the windmill had the outsides always go to the left, and eventually we all voted and said, no, that's illogical. We can have them go right and face in and face out. So once a call gets into general use, the author has no control over it any longer. It's gone. A perfect example is ping pong circulate. Now, Don Beck wrote that for everybody, do a circulate path. And, oh, boy, we all got these spots. 99% of the people don't think of ping pong circulate as a circulate path. Think of an extend and pass to the center, or an extend twice and outsides trade. And the word circulate just happens to be there as a word that doesn't mean anything, like St. Louis Cardinals, and the Cardinal doesn't mean anything, it's just their name. It's the same on ping pong circulate. So once a call is out there, the author loses all control over it, and it's now what the dancers want to do. I mean, the author of Recycle didn't want it to be a hands call, and even the CALLERLAB definition says it's a no hands call, but the dancers have said, we want it to be a hands call, so we're going to dance it that way. And we don't care what anybody else says, so fine, then that's the way it is.
Yeah, I know, like you said, I'm probably bringing this up the wrong place, but I brought it up at the other place and got no response. I thought maybe some folks that, are a little higher up on the hierarchy of CALLERLAB could voice this. Why don't they make half-breed through a mainstream call? But just like, for instance, when you're teaching line tags, the first thing you're doing is you're getting them from standard positions. They're very uncomfortable. I'm talking to you dancers. They're very uncomfortable. Half-breed through would fix it just like that. And it's a right and left through variation. Why not just make it part of the family?
That's a logical suggestion, but the problem is there are all sorts of calls that on every list that are easy enough to be on two lists below. There are some easy C3A calls that could be done at plus, but they aren't because there's a limit on quantity at every program, and we have to make a decision which calls out of all the ones that are easy enough to do we want on this list. And so I think that's the reason, plus the fact that there's this big debate going on over Native American acceptability and all this stuff. And but I think that's the reason. They're looking to drop calls off of mainstream, not add calls.
All right, we want to thank you guys for coming, for your attention. Thank you. See, it was John and Ed. Yes. Thank you guys very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening and the rest of the convention.